Do you want to change your shirt or are we going live?
Nah, it's fine. Let's just go live.
Oh, I clicked it already.
Yes, you did. Which
live.
means we're probably live right now, even though it's previewing still, but now we're live.
And I forgot about that whole thing YouTube does now where you hit go live and it actually broadcasts like 30 seconds
This
beforehand.
is what I was saying to you.
So we'll probably have a conversation about you wanting to change your shirt and me saying my knickers are wet.
Oh, stomach. No.
Hello and
Hello!
welcome to Pear of Geeks!
Welcome. I'm Jayson.
Oh, I'm Becky. And we are your hosts for the next however long we decide to do this for. We usually go for a couple of hours and then get tired.
Yes. This is quite a chill stream tonight. We have been.
Yes. We haven't planned it as much as we usually do. We usually spend like 2 minutes talking about what we're going to do. Today we spent 30 seconds.
Yep.
We're really well planned.
Really well planned.
So, I have read 2 of the 3 most recent posts to the Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition group.
Okay.
I thought, let's talk about those, because this is a massive group. And the first one has had over 1,000 comments.
Whoa.
So it's not possible to get the definitive answer.
Can we get 1,000 comments?
Unlikely.
Oh.
But you can get the definitive answer.
Yes.
Because what I say goes. I'm the GM. And it is, what races do you ban and why?
Mm.
Now you see...
Okay. Well, I know which ones you ban.
Well, I don't necessarily ban any.
You have made rules about...
Yes, but it depends on the world we're building. And I start with understanding what the players want to play.
Yeah.
So that's step 1. And if the players want to do a high fantasy romp, then yeah, Dragonborn are allowed.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
tiefling.
I've never sort of said, oh, Dragonborn are not allowed.
But if you want to do a low magic setting, I feel Dragonborn have no place in it. Or Tieflings. Because Dragonborns are literally walking dragons.
Yeah, I think Tieflings more, actually, than Dragonborn. Of that
Tieflings, literally demons, which
Yeah,
can,
they-
of course, be
yeah.
disruptive with some players.
Yes, exactly.
There's
There's
I've
all
never...
that history.
I create a rule and I create a rule for everyone, so I'd never actually ban specific players from playing a particular race, but there are definitely players who can't play a tiefling without being disruptive to the party.
Yes.
And you kind of want to just ban those ones. Hi, Phil!
Hello, Phil!
Welcome to the stream. Glad you've tuned in once more. We're still building the audience, I see. You're still all tuning in. So we're having a chillaxing time, talking about...
You said that so poshly. Oh, yeah, chillaxing.
Well, I am quite posh, darling. We've established this before.
Yes.
We are talking about the races we ban and why. And for me, I don't outright ban a race from all games ever type thing. There isn't a race I absolutely hate bar one.
No.
Which I will talk about in a moment. There is one race that is absolutely banned from my games.
This is the one I was thinking of. I'm not gonna say, but I'm just saying because I was like, oh yeah, you do ban some things. You're like, no, I don't.
But sometimes I will ban particular races in order to encourage a particular viable theme that the players want to play.
Yes.
So they want to do dark and gritty. You don't want Dragonborns, Tieflings, and Tabaxis running around. Actually, a Tabaxi could fit, but you know, in a low magic setting, it won't.
Yeah,
unless
definitely.
you're doing it in
Yeah.
like the desert or something.
Yeah, basically, because you've got, of course, your non-human races, but they're still humanoid. I think it's if you branch even out of that, like with Tabaxi, for example. That's when it goes into quite sort of high fantasy.
Yeah.
It's not so grounded, I suppose, is it?
And like, there's some races that if I was doing a human-only campaign, because we wanted something really sort of gritty and stuff, I would still consider allowing a Goliath because that is just a big human. Like,
Yes.
normally large.
Yeah. You
allowing
could sort of see them more as like that's their culture rather than they're a race that's different.
Well, to be honest, I mean, they're 10 foot tall.
Yes.
But, you know, it's a... You get particularly big humans.
Yeah.
It's, you know, and I could see it fitting in a human-only campaign, whereas something like a Dragonborn doesn't even fit in low fantasy in my mind.
No. Hello, Michael B.
Hello, Michael. Welcome back once more. But the race that I never allow, purely because D&D doesn't work.
It's
if you allow this race,
it's a bit broken.
And that's the Aarakocra. Because flight changes everything in the game. There are so many puzzles and traps and plot points that you can just kind of skip with flight.
I was a very, very new DM, and I was doing advanced fighting fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a wizard, and you get like these 3-letter spells like zap and things like that, and one of them is basically a flight spell.
Yeah.
And my scenario, it was quite improv, but it was, sort of like a tower scenario, so I sort of thought of all this stuff. And he's like, okay, I'm just going to fly to the top.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm not using flight ever again.
When you give flight to your players, all of a sudden, every encounter, you have to consider this thing that they've got that they can do.
So I'll just fly over here, I'll just fly really long distances really quickly.
Oh, you want to do a puzzle floor or something basic like that because you're working on the fly and you needed something quick, so you use something simple and common that you just draw from the old bag of tricks, and it doesn't work because flight. And so having a race that has an innate flyability, it makes it much harder to come up with puzzles on the fly. So
on the fly.
Yeah, I know, that's cool, right? So it means you have to really consider all of your encounters before you deliver them to the players.
Yes.
And that completely removes the ability to improv a good adventure. So if I was to allow flight, it wouldn't be because a player asked me to play an Aarakocra. It would be because we're doing a flight-based campaign that's well planned ahead beforehand, or something, or we're doing a whole campaign with a city in the clouds or something.
I think the only time I've ever allowed flight in general is I've sort of provided the players with a temporary flight power or potion or something for plot reasons.
But not. If you allow it for mechanical flight within your encounters, then you've set yourself up for a much harder task DMing. So death to the Aarakocra. As much as I love Flash Gordon, which is essentially where they're from, let's face it, the music is brilliant in Flash Gordon. I still sometimes get the theme song on my head.
Well,
even now.
It's Brian May.
Flash, was Freddie singing?
Yeah, but it's written by Brian May.
Oh, I see what you mean, yeah.
As is most of the soundtrack.
I always generally, because in the later years of Queen, and we've gone way off topic here, but the later years of Queen, they always sort of shared full writing credits.
Oh, yeah, definitely, but...
I've never really considered, this song's by them, this song's...
Well, it's because...
some of their biggest hits were John Deacon.
Yeah, that's very true, but Brian May was big into, the sci-fi stuff, and he had his own solo project where he did, a song called Starfleet. I don't know if you've seen that, it's very cheesy.
I did get his solo album at the time, but to be honest, I was young, and I haven't gone back to it.
It's hilarious.
Right, so that was the best one. What about you, and the races you ban?
Not specifically ban outright, but as I said, with things in particular like Tieflings, not so much Dragonborn. If it is quite gritty, no, I don't use them because I consider them to be not of this world. Whereas at least Dragonborn, they are descended from dragons. That yes, they're very intelligent creatures, very different from humanoids, but they're still, earth-bound, as it were. There've been times where I've been like, nah, no Tieflings. Actually, come to think of it, there's quite a lot of campaigns where I've not had to say no, but more like suggesting don't do anything kind of out there like Tieflings.
For me, it has to follow the discussion of theme.
Yes, I agree.
And my very first D&D 5th campaign, I had a Tiefling and a Dragonborn. Because, the whole point of that campaign was, hey, 5th edition has come out, let's learn this new version of D&D, and look, there's 2 new races in the guys hadn't played before. They're like,
play please.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. So you're not going to ban them in that situation. Even though if I was doing, some kind of gritty urban scenario, like where it's in a city and it's a human city, and it's like the last thing you're going to do is have Dragonborn running around doing breath weapon attacks on everything.
Yeah, I like Shadows of Astron if you want really gritty, because everyone is a human, but you've got all the different cultures, so they've got their own traditions, they've got their own ways of life, and there's a lot of clash with that.
Yeah.
Which is really cool, but with the race, it's not like, oh yes, you have this sort of being, and then you have humans, and you have dwarfs and stuff. It doesn't work
They've
like
done
that.
the similar thing with Fate Forge, where they have the cultures.
Yeah.
Now, as much as I do love that, and I really do, I think it's a fantastic addition to the game, one of the big issues with cultures in a rule book, when you've documented the cultures, there's two problems. So the first is that, as a GM, do you take these cultures, do you vet them first, do you say that's appropriate to the world, that's not? So, you have that kind of problem, which is almost the same as having Dragonborn in a low fantasy.
Yeah, that's true.
But then you have the issue of players who know the cultures and players who don't. So you're shoehorning in this set of cultures into your world, and then the players who, let's be honest, when you're playing something other than D&D, they often don't know the background and haven't read the book.
No.
Because it's usually just the GM who has the book, if it's a game not D&D.
Yeah, but surely you're kind of shoehorning a bit of the cultures in anyway.
Well, not necessarily. Like, when I come up with a scenario for a campaign, I will create a culture and put the players into that culture. And I'll sometimes have, conflicting cultures on the edge, depending on the campaign and the theme and tone and everything else. But I'll put cultures around that. And if you have to then take them from the book and vet them...
I'm not
because that's
thinking
the definitive
of that
list of cultures.
Yeah.
That for me doesn't work for me.
No, I'm not really thinking of that. I'm thinking more like, for example, with the Clockwork Opera, we discussed stuff. We had Matt, for example, who wanted to be a halfling. And halflings already, quite often, like especially with things like Warhammer, they have Moot Town or Moot, and you've got like their own separate thing. So I'd think of, okay, how is their culture working within our dystopian environment? So I still had to make something for them.
Yeah.
Obviously completely homebrewed rather than from the book, but I still had to... There was almost like a bit of shoehorning, because it's like, okay, you want to put a halfling in here, how is that going to fit with everything else?
So if you're going to take the thing about Shadows of Esther and Fate Forge with their cultures...
Yeah.
Is those games are very centred on the world that they are presenting you.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is both a strength and a weakness. And I do absolutely love Fate Forge as a game. I very much enjoyed Shadows of Esther when I did play it. But I got Fate Forge because I love it for many different reasons. But I'm probably never going to set a game in that world. And for me, a system that I'll come back to again and again and again is usually a generic one. So that I can apply my own world settings to. And I think a lot of GMs prefer to do that, prefer to have their own world settings and create their own stuff, rather than, like, if you try and do something in Forgotten Realms, for example, there's how many books? You even buy the official D&D guide on Forgotten Realms and you can't get an answer to half the things.
It's bizarre, because I hate the D&D worlds.
Yeah.
Like that. But with things like, say, Fighting Fantasy, Shadows of Estron, there's a couple of other things that I can think of as well, where I've put them in a set world and you kind of make up your own bits in it. I do quite like that. So for me, I guess it depends on the system and depends what kind of story I'm running.
I kind of almost wish, in a way, what they've done is saying these are the rules around cultures.
Yeah,
and I mean, of course,
like,
you can do that anyway, because you can look at what's there. There's only a paragraph or two text for each culture in the character gen part of it anyway, and so you can just take that as a framework, whatever you do, and homebrew your own stuff. But I just think that, as a system to be as a kind of generic thing, then the whole idea of cultures is definitely something I want to start putting into the character sheet. With benefits and negatives, but that's something that the GM kind of has to prep, if you like, for character generation. Yeah. Because it's almost like a step before, so it kind of wants to be in the book, but at the same time, I don't want it written in stone. I want to be able to take something and
Yeah, you can do that a bit with if you're creating a character for Fate, because you've got your aspects, and that can easily come in as part of your culture.
Yeah, but that
your
just
background.
kind of solves everything by using an aspect.
Well, yes, that's the point.
Right. So anyway, that's what races do you ban and why. I suppose, you know, there are others as well that don't fit into certain settings. You know, any of the high magic ones like Genasi or the what the little bird dude's called, the little crows.
Tengu?
That's it. Yeah, there's settings where they're not going to fit and stuff, and you know, because they are inherently high fantasy. So it's not just Dragonborns and Tieflings that I have it in for. We'll be doing low fantasy settings, but you know, it's basically I asked myself the question: would it fit in Conan? And if so, would it be a monster or would it be a player character?
Well, yeah, because there's a very sort of black and white good and evil thing with Conan. You've got the snake people, who are obviously the baddies, and then you've got the super beefcake men, who are the good guys. And possibly a woman, if you're lucky.
Yeah, Phil B has just said, don't think Genasi work well with a lot of settings.
I've never ever had a Genasi in one of my campaigns.
Wrong.
Never. Oh yeah, apart from that.
I
apart from that. I got mixed up.
I didn't particularly play her as a Genasi.
Well, no, exactly.
Per se,
That's why
I used that
forgot.
as a template.
Yeah. Yeah, you played her more as Mother Nature, avatar of Mother Nature.
Yeah. That's kind of what Genasi are.
Super druid.
They're elementals things. And if you've got a world where the elements of the oh god, what was the scientist who came up with the 4 elements? Archimedes? Yeah, it was Archimedes.
Was it? I'm right.
Yeah, I'm fairly sure. Reasonably so.
Well, no, I know he came up with the whole bath. Was it the bath theory? He jumped out of the bath.
Was that him or was that the Greek guy?
That is Greek. Archimedes is Greek.
Really? I thought he was... No, I think you're right.
Yeah, Archimedes is definitely Greek.
Moving on.
Anyway.
The next RPG question I saw in the pit, as it were, of public discourse in D&D is, what monster would you put in a 4th level forest? A forest for 4th level characters.
Why 4th level?
Because presumably that's what the GM's running.
It just seems quite specific to me. Normally you kind of say 3rd or 5th. You never go with the 4th. But 4th does have the ability score upgrades.
Exactly, yes.
So, what monster... When you say what monster, as in, like, does it have to be a big boss, or can it be anything?
Yeah, design an encounter, really.
Well, I know what you would say.
Yeah, obviously. Everybody's got to do that at least once.
Mushrooms.
No.
You love putting mushrooms in.
Yes, that would be something I would use. You know, little, what are they called? Myconids. I do love my myconids. That is true.
The arthropods.
Yeah. The reason they're really cool, incidentally, is because the colours of the mushrooms look absolutely wonderful against a forest background.
Yeah, that's very true.
So that's why I like to use my mushrooms. But no, the most obvious thing that I think everybody has to do at least once is the forest itself.
Oh yeah, of course. And a weird giant bard squirrel.
Our latest campaign has an anthropomorphic squirrel who is a bard who sings songs about how bad the PCs are.
Well, it's because we've made the squirrel believe in the god that we're trying to convert everybody to, because if we don't get people on the god's side, then the world will end.
Yes,
as far as we are aware. So the squirrel was like our first congregation. So we're like, sing things about the god and about us and stuff.
And then what did the squirrel do when discovering that the god in question was Bast and therefore a cat?
Didn't it run away or scream?
Immediately left your religion, yes. Because it's a cat versus squirrel, it's never going to come up.
No. Hello N20 Games.
Oh, hello N20, a load of chat. So N20 says, I ran a game years ago and told the players it was a world without humans. They made their various character, and on the third session, I had humans arrive on ships and just started taking everything over. It's a pretty fun campaign, but ended in disaster.
That's a bit on the nose, but I like it.
It is, yeah.
I like it.
There's a film like that, isn't there? We saw a sci-fi one recently where it's robots. We saw it a couple of months ago. There were robots living on the Earth, and the big twist, the robots presented as humans, and the big twist was that it was actually, don't say the name now because I don't want to spoil it, but the big twist was that it was actually they weren't the humans, and the humans were coming to take the planet back.
Oh, I vaguely remember it.
Let's go. We won't say the name because in case we don't want to spoil the film for somebody else. But
no.
But I heard about somebody doing something similar years ago in the Brigade, and I was actually in this hangout chat once with a load of RPGers, and we were just chatting. The Brigade, that kind of thing used to happen a lot. It'd be hangouts of just general people in the RPG community online, and this GM was planning a game where he basically set them up for high fantasy. But in the first session, Star Wars arrived. Right? So you had a Star Destroyer, you had Imperial troops,
Wow.
So the players were fantasy characters with magic in their world and everything. But they were within the Star Wars universe. And the GM was loving this concept and this idea. But the next week, I bumped into one of the players in a similar hangout. Who had the most horrendous time because he felt he didn't. Essentially, his big complaint boiled down to they didn't get the game they thought they were going to get.
That sounded a bit awkward, but I
so
can
it was
see that point completely.
They felt like it was a bit of a bait and switch. Yeah, exactly. That's no moon.
That's no moon. So they were kind of like Ewoks, but not little teddy bears. They
were definitely unaware inhabitants of the galaxy, as it were. And I love that idea, that premise, but I think you've got to be so careful how you deliver that.
Well, exactly, because the thing is that there are plenty of like lush forest planets that are very primitive, like Kashyyyk or Endor, but they still fit within sci-fi because they're just primitive with nothing on it. There's no magic per se. Yes, there is the Force as like a thing that exists around us, or midichlorians, if you want to go for the midichlorians.
Well, that was the GM's premise, that the magic was the Force.
Yeah.
And it's just that those characters explained it as magic.
So they were basically massive Force adepts without realising.
Well, the mage in the group, as it were, because I don't suppose everyone casts magic in the group, but... Yeah,
so he was the same as Thingy.
The thing is, I think if the GM had handled it well and run a game that was still a good game, then maybe the player wouldn't have objected. But if you go too far down that sci-fi route when you've got players signed up for fantasy, that can easily lead to an issue.
Why couldn't he just say, "Oh, it's going to be based in Star Wars, but it's going to feel like fantasy,"
in order to deliver that twist? And that I think it can be done well, but I think what you have to do is you have to treat it like a fantasy encounter.
Yeah.
So you're essentially dealing with a golem that has within it a human.
Right, so...
and that's your stormtrooper.
So what you're saying is that he didn't sort of describe it as that, but he described it more as, there's a Star Destroyer. A Star Destroyer comes in, or...
I wasn't in the game, so I don't know exactly how it was described. I just heard the GM beforehand planning this, and then I heard a player afterwards complaining about it.
Yeah. But yes, Michael B says that anytime you do a twist without player buy-in, it will end in a train wreck.
Yeah, but I think
I agree with.
You can do it as a surprise to the players, but you need to present these things in a fantasy context. Like, the worst thing that could happen is you create fantasy characters and have them looting stormtrooper armor and blasters in order to try and fight off, and become sci-fi characters.
Yeah.
I think if you do that by surprise, you've essentially given the players a different game. But if you keep their gameplay grounded in the fantasy, there's no reason why you couldn't do it. You could have Darth Vader turn up, and he's a great villain. He could work in a fantasy setting too. So that could absolutely work, provided you keep the game grounded in the fantasy.
Yeah.
And I think that's possibly where that GM may have gone wrong. And I use those terms possibly and maybe because I wasn't in the game, but
maybe if it was the right, that's the wrong way to put it. Maybe if it's players that are kind of used to breaking the fourth wall a bit.
Well, I think
maybe
it's more, to me, it's more a case of,
but...
like, if you adjudicate that swords cannot penetrate stormtrooper armor because that's literally why the thing was invented.
Yeah.
The players then have to adapt by looting stormtrooper stuff. Then you've created a sci-fi game with fantasy characters, and that's pointless. N20 says, oh no, hang on, I've skipped one.
No, you haven't.
Oh no. Alright, so N20 says, I agree. I think if a GM wants to plan such a complete surprise, they must know their players very well. I don't think it's necessarily about knowing the players. I think it's about keeping the game grounded. If you're playing, you go back to session 0. Your first discussion is tone, and if my players had said to me that, all right, we want to do a high fantasy game, and we want to. I don't know what would actually inspire me to ever do such a plot, but. Let's say we want it bordering on the sublime or the ridiculous.
Like the last Corporation game.
Yeah, if people ask for that, which I've been asked for again, and I've come up with a premise that does actually mix sci-fi and fantasy.
And it does sound really cool, but it works.
Yeah, but I'm not delivering that as a big twist.
No.
You know about it before genning your characters, so and you'll find out about that when we start running that game on Pog 2 after the current campaign. Yes. So yeah, I think it's just you're playing a fantasy game, so by the end of the game, you should still be playing a fantasy game.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be statting up rules for a blaster midway through.
I'm wondering if the players maybe saw the DM flicking through a Star Wars book, if they were using the Star Wars system.
No,
and thought, what was that?
I believe it was D&D 5th. But I don't know for sure. Okay. They were playing a fantasy game, that's what they signed up for. And it was just a plot with Star Destroyers and Stormtroopers turning up as the Imperials found some Kyber crystals or something on the planet, something along those lines. But going back to the topic of what do you populate your forest with for a
Stormtroopers
encounter? Absolutely, why not?
Let me think. I do like using the forest.
Yeah, the forest itself. I mean, you've got to run that at least once in your life.
I'm a big fan of, even if it's all in the players' heads, just manipulating how the forest looks. So even if you're talking day versus night, it's going to change. Yeah. Things come alive at night that weren't not necessarily there, or they stay dormant during the day.
One of the things I like doing, because you know how people get scared in trees, particularly at night with the shadows of the leaves and stuff like that, is you can... We discussed this actually, we've only ever talked about this once before, and it was on the horror video we did, how to GM a horror game. But the idea of delivering fear through perception.
Yeah.
So if somebody passes a perception check, they actually see something that isn't there.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a really cool little horror trick you can do to encourage fear in the players, like genuine fear. Because, if you see leaves moving in a way that suggests they're about to attack you, or you see a creepy monster in the shapes of the leaves, and they've rolled a perception check and that is what they see, it's because the character is hyper alert and observant, so the character sees this, and you deliver it to the player with the confidence of them having just passed a perception check. So, because you're highlighting, you're using the fact that the character is hyper alert against them to actually narrate something, to narrate their fear, but to deliver it in a way of you see this.
Yeah, definitely. But with things like monsters, I would like to at some point run another game that's kind of set in like Pulp Fiction 1930s, so something that I do particularly like. Well, I've got those new minis, haven't I? But things I do like in particular is things like dinosaurs roaming in a forest of some sort. Obviously, do something more like guns, so it'd be more kind of up to date.
What's the 4th level dinosaur? Because I can't think of many. They're all scary and terrifying.
No, there's plenty of smaller ones like Compsognathus, goose-sized, eats lizards.
Okay. But is that a threat to humans, though?
Well, it has a bit of a snap to it, so yeah, it
Okay.
can sort of gnaw on your leg a bit if you're not careful. Velociraptors, quite small.
They're small and terrifying.
They're terrifying, but they're small.
Yeah.
They can still be 4th level. They're very scrawny as well, I suppose. So, low hit die.
I'm only going by Jurassic Park, and frankly, that didn't even have feathers.
Well, no, no, but without feathers or any natural armor, feathers, they are quite small.
So, I think...
Exactly, N20. Dungeons and Dinosaurs.
Oh, hell yeah. Well, should it be dinosaurs and dragons? Because dragons are kind of a dinosaur, and I love dragons.
Yeah, I know you do, but dinosaurs are reptiles too.
Yes, so... like a reptile gasm.
Yes. They've discovered a new flying dinosaur recently with an absolutely massive wingspan, but it has claws on the end of the wings.
I thought pterodactyls had claws on the end of the wings.
Yeah, they more
it's
often
midway
they do.
down, isn't it?
Yeah, this one has got like an absolutely huge beak.
Okay, like
massive.
a giant pterodactyl.
It is like a giant pterodactyl with a friggin' huge wingspan the size of a bus type thing.
Cool. Actually terrifying, but
Cool.
cool. So I think I still want to focus on it. I love using the environment as a monster. So, I see no reason why a river cannot in itself be a monster.
I was just about to mention a river. I like putting in water sources into nature, so things like that, or maybe even a swamp, something like that, because you can get very
good.
swampy forests, like with dinosaurs again. There's plenty of those in back in prehistoric times, but yeah, swamps are great because you can get obviously things like crocodiles, so you get some more reptiles in there, but you get other things like snakes, like swamp snake type things,
Insects.
eels, piranhas, lots of insects, poisonous
I think
things.
insects are kind of mishandled in most fantasy games. Like D&D
Okay.
have this principle of like they do what I think you'd call a base or a swarm of insects.
Yeah,
and you
I
attack
prefer...
the swarm, and you could do it with a sword, and it just makes no sense to me.
Swarm of rats kind of makes sense, but I don't like swarms of flies. I much prefer having quite a large insect that is maybe
Well, it's
sort
the
of...
fact you can do damage to the swarm as if it's a
Yeah,
monster.
what?
Like
No,
it's yeah.
Unless maybe you threw a fireball at a swarm of flies.
I had this game once where it was 5th edition, and I was playing a warlock, and we only did a single session of this campaign. It kind of faltered after the first session because one of the players wasn't getting on with 5th edition. It's not somebody you know, but this encounter... Now, I am so unused to the concept of a swarm being a monster you attack that I kind of handled this encounter completely wrong. So the GM presented this swarm of bats, and this particular warlock that I was playing, I kind of reskinned one of the early warlock spells where you got tendrils out the ground, and I reskinned it as this character's hair.
Oh, cool.
Which I thought was really awesome. So I kind of narrated myself sort of going around the corner, and I unleashed this spell, and my hair kind of blacks the bats to the side, and and starts killing them, because it was the only thing I could think of that was an area effect attack that would deal with something otherwise insignificant like bats. And the GM was like, well, no, you don't kill the bats at all. What you do is you make it a hit roll. I was like, what? I guess a cloud like a big swarm of bats. And it's like I was just, this concept of using a swarm as a monster just doesn't make it made so little sense. It hadn't even occurred to me that I'd have to roll to hit these things, and that other players with their swords could attack it. It just it just made no sense.
Well, that thing, especially with bats, because they're quite big, that kind of contradicts it, because it's a swarm, so it's a large, large size thing.
Bats are big, so still only,
Well, I suppose it depends.
Size,
but you've got a big area, so it's easy to go out with an area effect spell, but you're still rolling to hit it.
Yeah.
So it's what?
N20 Game says, I never thought giant spiders were ranked high enough. I mean, that would be about the deadliest thing adventurers could encounter if you ask me.
Well, it depends what kind of spider
Yeah,
it is for starters.
Well, the thing is, in D&D, spiders are kind of treated as a fairly low-level monster, because it's something everyone's familiar with the concept, so you kind of throw it in at low level because it's something we can all relate to.
Yeah.
And, really all we're doing is saying it's like an Australian spider, but bigger, if that's possible.
Well, again, it depends on what type of Australian spider, but...
I know that actually the most deadly ones aren't the biggest, but
no, they're not.
That's kind of beside the point in fantasy. So
yeah, but that's the thing. Quite often, the bigger spiders are not quite as harmful, and
they do
usually
have some terrifying spiders though.
Well, yes, they do, but like the really giant spiders you get in like fantasy tend to be like web spiders or possibly tarantulas, so they kind of look all big and hairy and stuff. But the really deadly ones, Black Widow, funnel web. Those ones, you don't really see them as much. And this is why, going back to, I like the idea of rather having a swarm of flying insects, like, I don't know, flies or bees or something. I much prefer the idea of having a large insect or a few large insects that are very colourful, that look terrifying, that could potentially sting you, things like that. There's a great example in Silent Hill. There's no forest involved, but you're basically attacking a ginormous moth. It's huge, absolutely huge.
And you can do the same with like wasps. Yeah, people.
Oh yeah, definitely wasps.
Wasps are great because wasps are just anger personified. And you make that big to the scale that you can hit it with a sword.
And the biggest wasp, the hawk wasp, is also bright blue. So
cool.
It looks exotic already.
I'm gonna have to Google that.
It's the biggest wasp. It's so horrible that it actually eats tarantulas. It stuns tarantulas.
Wow. But the thing about if you use a giant wasp as a monster, and again, they're often used as fairly low-level monsters when people have done that kind of stuff, which isn't often, I have to say, with wasps. And I think most of that is because if miniature painters don't like painting wasps, because it's terrifying whilst you're painting it. But so that's why they're not popular.
I can detach reality from fiction.
No. I hate painting giant spiders. But no. The thing about a giant wasp, you put that in, there's already the implication there that there's thousands of these things. If you don't kill that quickly, the pheromones it leaves behind are going to attract more and more. And that is kind of a cascade of TPK.
It's like a stampede of flying insects.
And that is kind of like commonly understood by everyone without the need to even say it, just because it's a freaking wasp. It's angry, and there's a lot that can be done by taking insects and just making them bigger. And for me, I'd rather have, you'd normally think of insects as an environmental hazard. And I think making them giant,
it's their territory. They've got like a nest
as a thing you can kill is a great way of handling them, because I really hate the swarm approach. But there's also things that do no direct harm, like keeping the insect, tiny creepy crawlers, just having them getting in your clothes and stuff, being generally uncomfortable. It's really hard to do that kind of thing in role playing. Yeah. Because players are just like, oh, I'm not a character that's bothered by that kind of thing, or it's like, well, how is this impacting you mechanically, and how can you fight it mechanically? And you kind of can't achieve that, in a good mechanical way. In 5th edition, you just say we get disadvantage until you get in a water source, and then you could leech them or something.
You might have to make a
hit
con
point.
save or something.
Yeah, and it kind of doesn't work in role playing, but at the same time, that's the kind of stuff I really want to be doing with environments like forests and swamps and things, because frankly, the original question of what monster to put into a forest for level 4 characters is kind of a moot question. Use any monster you damn well please. There's bazillions of them. I can pull the first monster manual off of this shelf. There we go. Peterson's Abomination is probably the least appropriate book. Ooh. And look, I found a house for sale.
Yeah, it's not a monster manual. While you're doing that,
something. So that's like a satire.
While you're doing that, I'm going to take a leak.
Okay.
They put the book straight back.
All right, let me just catch up with chat then, and then I'm going to do the most important thing on this entire video.
Yes.
So, wasps, oh my god, says... oh no, I missed one. Michael B says dragons are hexapodal, dinosaurs are quadrupedal. Ha ha! He was wrong out there. So, wasp, oh my god, a giant wasp would be horrifying and deadly. I would run, no saving throw required. Damn straight, I can't think of anything more horrific to throw at someone in any setting or genre of role-playing game. Like, I hate wasps. I really do. They just terrify me. Michael B says, tarantula hawks are terrifying to look at when you see it sized against a human hand. Yeah, I mean, well, I'm going to assume that because it's a giant insect of some kind, that it's from, or anthropo or whatever, but I'm assuming this is Australian, because I don't know anything on this particular creature myself. And the thing is, everything in Australia is scary, like even the people. They just, everything in Australia wants to kill you. It's an established meme. We all know this, right? So, I work with an Australian, and they're terrifying. He's a lovely guy, but terrifying, because you never quite know how venomous he is. Welcome back.
You are talking about?
Yeah, I was talking briefly about Jared.
Yes.
It's fine. He's playing D&D tonight. He will not be watching the stream. Are you having another beer?
Yes. Would you like one?
Well, I'm just worried about tomorrow. See, tomorrow
Good
we
segue.
are playing. We are playing Twilight Imperium. So, hello, ho. There are Tyrannical hawks. Trinchal hawks in the Midwest, in the US. I see them at least twice a year. Tarantula hawks.
Okay.
The camel spiders in the Middle East are the things of nightmares. Yeah. See, I don't want to
yes,
Google
I've heard
these
of camel
things.
spiders.
Are they really big?
I can't remember, but I've heard of them. I used to be quite fascinated by poisonous creatures and poisonous plants.
Monitors.
Hey?
Monitors. We don't use monitors enough in RPGs. And these are a real monster.
Monitors?
Yeah. Like a
As
lizard.
in...
Like a giant gecko, but giant-sized. Right, I'm gonna have to show Jason here, because I'm talking about a real thing.
No idea what he's talking about.
No, because I'm a nerd, so it's coming up with computer stuff.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's as soon as you said monitor, that's what I thought you meant.
This is a monitor, right? But some of these grow massive.
I'm sure the
It's
stream
like a
are
giant-sized
loving
gecko.
that.
I'm sorry, I can't...
Yeah, I know, it's too small. It's too small, but they are quite big.
You can get, some of them can take up the size of a bay window.
Wow. Holy moly.
You get, like literally anything in Australasia for some reason, because like Japan has a load of large monitors.
Yeah.
Um,
Japan has the friggin' wasps that are supposed to be coming over here. They're as big as your hand.
What?
Like,
why are they coming here?
Because of climate change and stuff.
We need to cool the planet fast. Wasps, they also have massive hornets.
Yeah, sorry, they are hornets. Yeah, killer hornets.
Right, yes,
Well, killer
hornets, that makes more sense. And
hornets,
that terrifies me, because
yeah.
I saw a hornet once this big.
Yes.
And possibly longer, actually. Which probably was one of those, and it probably came over on a container ship and died shortly after. But for the time it was here, it was genuinely terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
I went out the back of my house, I heard this lawnmower fly past my head, saw that it was something terrifying with yellow-black stripes, ran inside the house, closing the door, shutting the windows and stuff, and I could still hear it like it was a lawnmower right next to me, like a 2-stroke high-pitched engine revving at 20,000 revs.
Wow.
It was so loud. It was like too loud to think when I'd sealed off the outside to stop this thing from getting in. And you're telling me they're coming over here more now? Like,
well, yeah, they have
so
been.
great once, and now I'm going to end it.
Yeah. Anyway,
So
tomorrow,
yeah, we're playing Twilight Imperium, and we kind of wanted to talk a little bit more about board games on the stream.
yes.
And we didn't really plan this segment per se, other than sort of say, let's talk a little bit about board games today, because I want to do more board gaming stuff, and board games have changed so much Like, you know, when you think back to like the games of a childhood, you know, Cluedo, Monopoly. Obviously, everyone knows Monopoly's terrible.
Snakes and Ladders.
But that's not even a game.
It's not. But that was one of my first board games.
But it's not a game. It's a board. That's what it is. There's no game because there's no decision you ever make. You just roll the dice, and what happens to you happens.
Yeah, I felt really sorry for one of my colleagues when we had to do this like training session, and they'd made like a literally like almost like a Snakes and Ladders board game where you roll the dice, you go round 3 spaces. So incredibly basic. He had not played a single board game in his life. He had no idea what was going on. He didn't understand the concept, even. And I was keeping quiet, but my heart was going like this, like, what? How is this possible?
How can somebody live without games in
Oh,
their
yeah,
life?
exactly. I want to shake him and go, what is wrong with you? Why have you not played any board games? They are so good for you.
They are good for you in so many ways, and the thing is, board games have exploded in popularity so much. They've overtaken RPGs by such a huge
so
margin.
funny whenever I talk to non-geeks, if you will, about board games, and they say, oh, what, like Monopoly? Like, no, as in like this,
Fun
this,
games.
this, and this. And then they say, oh, really? Are they kind of popular? I'm like, yes, they are very popular at the moment. They're massive.
Yeah. It's
a
huge
golden age. They're calling
is.
it a golden age of board games.
And not for our stream. We lost 2 viewers the moment we started talking about them. But we'll come back to RPGs. It might have been the mention of Hornets, actually. N20
Yes.
Game says that was probably a Hornet if it had black and yellow stripes. They are the largest and solitary. Yeah, it was a single thing, and yeah, I honestly, it was the most terrifying insect I'd ever seen. I mean, just the scale of it looked like something.
You've
from
missed
Australia.
out some Michael B ones, so I'll read
did
them
I?
out. Michael B says camel spiders are 6 inches long. Wow. I think the horror of all these are seeing something you expect to be small, but it's actually larger. Even a butterfly as large as your head. I was more fascinated when that happened to me
But here's
once.
the thing. What, you saw a butterfly the size of your head?
It wasn't the size of my head, but it was a damn massive moth with loads and loads of colours all over it that flew in, and it went into the bedroom, and I actually had to sort of stop and look at it for a while.
I was in the loo, wasn't I?
Yeah,
I never
I
got to
didn't
see
want.
this,
No, well, I didn't want to
thankfully,
tell you because I thought you'd freak out. Exactly.
I would.
Whereas it was big. It was at least sort of this big, sort of span of my hand. And I'm like, okay, how am I going to get this out of the room?
Before I see it.
Yeah, before you see it, and think, what's he doing in there? But yes, N20 Game says board game industry is about $140 billion industry these days. Whoa, I didn't know it was that much, but wow, yeah.
It's absolutely gigantic, and so I thought it'd be good to talk about some of our favourite games.
Okay.
So my favourite of all time is one we're playing tomorrow.
Yes.
And I mean, it's weird because I first played Twilight Imperium. When was it? Our first game. It was earlier this year. It was the birthday game, or was it last year?
No, it was last year.
It was last year.
Yeah.
2018.
Yeah, it was definitely 2018 because we played it online and stuff as well, haven't we?
We have done, but was that not just early in the year? Or?
No.
Was it last year?
No,
It was last year.
definitely
Okay.
not.
So that was my first playthrough of Twilight Imperium ever.
Yes.
Having never played a previous edition.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, it was kind of nostalgic because it reminded me so much of a game I used to play in my childhood that I since purchased on Steam and I've been playing again.
And can you tell the audience what that is?
It's Masters of Orion 2. So it's a genre of games that it had its moment in the spotlight probably before some of our audience at least were born, but I think most of our audience are... No, you'd have been born. Most of our audience...
I was a baby, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Or a fetus.
So the 4X game, if I remember, and I might get this wrong now, somebody will correct me in chat, it's explore, expand, exterminate, and... Oh, crikey, what's the other X?
Well, it's not, it's EX, but... Okay.
Yeah, but it's drawing on the X in the
She's the 80s thing. With
Yeah,
X.
absolutely.
Explore.
Expand,
X everything.
exterminate, and something. Ah,
Extreme.
I don't know. I can't remember. Somebody will correct me in the chat. I hope. But it's basically you run a space empire.
Yeah.
You know, you start with one planet, you explore the galaxy, you conquer it, and then you eliminate your rivals in some manner, or you beat them
metaphorically,
or so on.
well, figuratively or literally.
Both. Exploit. Thank you. And 20 games correcting me. Yeah.
Exploit.
So exploit. So you're exploiting the resources available to you, and then you exterminate. Master of Orion, you didn't have to kill people by destroying them. You could win diplomatically. You could win scientifically. You could win by popping over to an alternative dimension and dealing with some nasty aliens, which actually was one of the easier ways to win. So, provided you lasted that long into the game to be able to do it, because it was one of the end game quite late in the games, whereas military and diplomatic victories you can do quite early. So, yeah, I loved this game, Masters of Orion 2, and I've bought many other similar games, including the sequel to it, Masters of Orion 3, which was terrible.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, it was by a different studio, and they tried to reimagine the concept, and the problem is they were dealing with something that was essentially a perfect game just old.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
And they tried to reimagine it, and really just wanted an evolution and bringing it up to date, and it kind of killed the genre. There were other half-decent attempts. Pax Imperia was one.
Right.
That was a real-time version, whereas Master Orion 2 is turn-based, and this game Pax Imperia allowed you to play... Because this was the era when people would do gaming sessions with computers, where they'd bring computers over to other people's houses and do link-up sessions. And this was a relatively popular phenomenon for a fair while. So these games would allow you to do that. So I played Master of Orion with friends on network, and it was amazing, but it was a long, slow game.
Okay.
So Pax Imperia was like the real-time
Well,
version.
N20 has said that they have not played Twilight Imperium yet because of that reason, in that people say to them that it's an all-day affair.
It is.
It is. There are some. I was reading a bit of Reddit earlier. There are some house rules apparently to help streamline. So some people, for example, don't allow any kind of secret meetings. Everything has to happen at the table.
Yeah, but that's the fun.
Oh yeah, I agree, but they have their own ways of making it a little bit quicker.
Well, look, an experienced group can play a game of TI4 in somewhere between 4 and 6 hours. It can be done, especially if you're doing the short game, which is for pussies, right? The 10-point game.
So we're not doing the 10-point game tomorrow.
Oh hell no! 10-point game's rubbish. Pay 14 points or go home. Because there's only an extra couple of turns at most. So basically, it is an all-day play. But to be honest, that's one of the things that makes it great. Like, it's an event. Now, it isn't always easy to fill 6 seats. In fact, we've never managed to do it apart from the first time we ran it when we had 8 turns.
The first time we had
game.
too many, so we had to pair people up.
Yeah, so we've never actually played it as a 6-player game, apart from I played it a couple of times online as 6-player.
Yes, I believe you were quite badly annihilated, weren't you?
On my very first go online, playing 6-player, I got absolutely thrashed. Not only that, I was playing a race I didn't really know, and also playing it online. Everyone online was playing this game so quickly, and they knew how everything.
Where everything was.
And I was so kind of overwhelmed by the experience that I really didn't. I didn't even look at the board properly, other than my own little thing. And it just didn't occur to me that next to me was a race of people that need to expand, and next to them, so it was the Tsar, how they go wandering.
Yeah.
You've played them.
Yes, I do.
And next to them was the Exjar, who are turtles. They're basically a big defensive porcupine. So where's that player that's next to me actually going to go? They're not going to go to the turtles, are they?
No.
No, they're going to come my way. And I hadn't even looked at the board and clocked that. When I was eliminated on turn 2. Or was it 3? I can't remember. It might be the start of turn 3. And I was so overwhelmed by the whole experience. But no, I love Twilight Imperium as a board game because it's an event, because it's an all-day play. It makes it an epic thing. It's a thing you send out invites for.
Yeah.
It's not... there are games that sit on your shelf and that you bring out when you got friends over because you were doing something else. It's like, hey, do you fancy a board game before you go type thing. Those games are great and I love them, but they're not something you invite someone over for and put a date in the diary for. Whereas Twilight Imperium is that kind of game. It's the game where you say, hey, how do you guys fancy playing Twilight Imperium? We'll get pizza in. Well, if everyone over, we'll get the big table set up, and it'll be this epic game. And as an experience, there's very few things that can come close to that.
Yeah, I agree.
And it is a wonderful, wonderful game.
Can I interrupt though? We've just lost it on the chat, which is why I wanted to say it now. But N20 has said that they are going to be bringing out a tabletop, is it a card game Kickstarter? In 2 weeks. Tabletop card game, on Kickstarter in 2 weeks.
Tabletop card game on Kickstarter in 2 weeks. Send us the details, possibly a preview copy if you can, and we'll talk about it. So N20 Games said, I played Master of Orion for many years, but now I play Galactic Civilizations. I like it a little better. Is that the one by Paradox Entertainment? Because I was looking at that one. Because I've got their city game, which is quite good, but the problem with their games is that there are still expansions for the city game I haven't bought and want.
Wait, is this the city game that you play all the time?
Well,
where you get tsunamis and stuff.
Yeah. That thing, Cities Skylines.
The amount of people I've seen online who are like, Cities Skylines has taken over my life.
Yeah, when you play Cities Skylines, you'd play it for a long time. It's like a Twilight Imperium. You sit down and you play it for like 6 hours and stuff, and you build a city and stuff. But I can go a long time without playing it.
Hello, kitty.
Michael B says, before I had a job, all-day games were the greatest. Now it is a drag to get everyone with a free time slot. It isn't, but that's what weekends are for. And if you plan it enough in advance, then you can do it. It's the same with trying to organise an RPG. It's harder. I know some people play RPGs like midweek thing in person. Our friends kind of disperse too far and wide to do that. So we do our RPGs like once a month on a weekend.
And we do it as an all-day thing as well.
Yeah, because if you're getting people coming from far afield, all day is fine. And that's the other thing. Like, I couldn't get friends who live far away to come over for a game of the railroad one.
Call Express.
Well, that'll do.
But, Ticket to Ride.
Yeah, I couldn't get them to come over for a game of Ticket to Ride when my friend lives 2 counties away. But I can say, do you want to come over for a game of Twilight Imperium? And they come over and that's a full day's entertainment. And that's the thing. I think when I was younger and my friends lived closer, maybe that would have been more of an issue. Because we were gaming every Wednesday night, as it happened, and stuff. And there's no way you can fit a TI game to that, and the weekends we'd be off doing other stuff.
I wouldn't want to play Twilight Imperium through an evening anyway because I'd be too tired unless I played it for the rest of the day before.
We did try it, didn't we? Doing online, doing a turn a night, which it kind of worked, but it turns it into a commitment for that whole week, which I'd rather avoid.
Yeah. N20 says, I remember your Twilight Imperium videos. They were excellent. Why, thank you.
I was taught how...
Most excellent.
I only did one, I think, on Twilight Imperium, but it was like an hour long.
Yeah, you did one. Didn't we stream something when we first got it?
We did on Pear of Geeks 2. We did some live plays of it.
I was taught how to play once, but I just never got myself to sit at an actual game. Yeah, I'm a little bit worried if I get a faction I've never played before.
With space at the table tomorrow, if you can get to us.
I don't believe they are in this country, babe.
Phil B says, I want to play TI. Again, there is space at the table tomorrow, if you can get to us.
Come on,
it's
Phil.
It's only a 4-hour drive. We start at 10:30. Leave now, you'll be fine. Okay.
Yeah, I'll turn up at like 3 in the morning and go,
hello. Leave the kids with the wife.
Wow. Don't encourage it.
Do it, Phil. Do it. Talking of which.
Oh, have you not done them yet?
No. You came back before I got to it.
Ah, okay.
It is way past time. We mentioned
the most awesome people in the world.
And for this, and I don't mean any disrespect by it, so I'm actually going to leave the room because it is time for my midstream break. So I'm going to leave you
okay.
because unlike you, I like to actually leave you with something to do.
Oh, I see.
Dropping me in it. So, right, there's this, and then there's your favourite board game.
Yes.
We can talk about that for a bit.
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
So I will be right back, guys.
Yes. Ooh, awkward shuffling. Ah!
Waste of beer.
No.
Tell you what, I'll be right back.
There's this much left. Sorry if that was really loud. Oh dear. Never mind. Anyway, yes, the most awesome people in the world, while Becky cleans that up in the background. We have these amazing people with lots of glare going on. We have Russell Higgins, Jolly Mangina, Ormba, Mark Threlfall, Brandon Fishwick, David Poirier. I keep thinking of David Poirier. That's quite loud.
Well,
I will lean in.
okay, tell you what, we'll just fuck the carpet anyway.
No.
This mood.
Fiok Enterprises, Philip Bates, Elizabeth Chai-Pradical, and Nate Hanshan, so thank you very, very much. And also we have AJ Pickett back. We need to update this, babe.
Oh, crikey, I didn't print a new one.
Yeah, good job I remembered. But yes, so we have lots of you. Thank you so much if you fancy being one of the most awesome people in the world and help support our channel. Because really, without you, we couldn't do this. We couldn't go gallivanting off to conventions and mega games and things like that and buy the equipment that we need to make this. Fortunately, the equipment was damaged, by the way, with the beer. Then feel free to head on to our Patreon, or as Becky likes to call it, Patreon. Patreon page, patreon.com/Pear of Geeks, where you can get in to be one of the most awesome people in the world. I don't know why I did that with the mic pop shield being in the way, so there. So thank you very, very much. Yes, and N20 has unfortunately have to go, so thank you N20 for joining us. Again, send us some details for your Kickstarter and we'll be more than happy. Oh, another beer. Sorry, I got distracted. More than happy to talk about it. If you want to send us a copy, I don't know how ready they are or if you're kind of doing the Kickstarter first and then producing. Just, feel free to let us know with that. Phil B says, anyway, Scythe rematch. Yes, so, as some of you know, my favourite board game is Scythe. Lots of people have played Scythe by now. It's a few years old. But there are, I guess, some of you who haven't played it who are intrigued as to what it is. Essentially, it is a Euro game. And I got into Scythe because I'd already played something quite similar called Euphoria. So if you haven't played Scythe and you've not ever really played a Euro game before, where you're kind of, you've got your pieces, you're moving them around, you're doing a lot of resource management, I would recommend playing Euphoria first because, number one, it's a bit shorter. It's normally, well, I suppose it depends on how many players, but it's normally sort of an hour or a bit more than an hour, as Scythe can be more like going towards 2 hours. Again, depends on how many players, but it's a bit longer. Also, it's a bit more... While initially you look at the Euphoria board and think, I have no idea what's going on, there's less mechanics to worry about compared to Scythe, and there's less variations of strategy. So basically with Euphoria, you've got 4 factions. At the beginning, you choose... say 1 or 2 factions to work with, depending on what kind of cards you draw. And then you will adapt to that and therefore strategize based on what cards you draw, and then you would look at, okay, I can do it with this faction, I can do this with this faction, and kind of work with that. Whereas with Scythe, even though you do choose your faction at the start, and it's normally random, you also get a playmat as well, so there's a slightly different way of playing as each faction. So there's a lot of replay in there, and again, you've got more mechanics. So you've got your mechanics for your faction, and you've got mechanics for your playmat. Having said that, whilst it sounds daunting, it is beautiful. The playmats for Scythe are amazing, both aesthetically, how they work. Practically as well. I'm going to hold this right next to my chest so you can spin it.
Bought you another one.
Yes, I know. Thank you. That's very nice of you. And it's like with the board as well, it's quite simplistic as well. So yeah, there's the kind of the big hurdle of learning the rules, but once you get them and you get ideas of, okay, actually I could work on my popularity, or I could bolster and get really powerful with my military, or I could launch all my mechs and be all aggressive, or I could actually just sort of poodle along, minding my own business, picking up a few bits of grain and things like that. So it is an absolutely fantastic game. There are a few expansions. Some are better than others in my opinion. One of them, which is Invaders from Afar, very, very necessary. It's basically 2 more factions with a couple of other bits in there. Airships, I'm a bit indifferent about. Are you?
Yeah. I find the problem with the airship expansion is it doesn't actually help you achieve any of the core strategies that win you the game.
Yeah, it's just kind of like a sort of a bit on the side.
I'm happy for my airship to just sit in its base and not do much most of the time, because it doesn't achieve anything I want.
It's a bit like, if you get a curry, it's a bit like the salad. So you might want it, but more often than not you think, nah.
No, it's more like the poppadoms, like you'll have it afterward.
Oh, I don't. I have it during. But I see what you mean. Yeah, you think, oh yeah, poppadoms. Oh yeah. And then there is the, what's it called? Fenrir.
Rise of Fenris.
Rise of Fenris, not Fenrir, which we're playing through at the moment. It's like a kind of a campaign sort of thing. So you play multiple games, and it kind of does sort of slightly different scenarios. It might be that you're at peace at the moment, or you're at war. You've got alliances with each other and things like that. So it's quite good.
It's really meant for a larger group. We're playing it through as a 2-player thing, and it doesn't work, I think, as well as a 2-player thing. Rise of Fenris. It really wants more players. But the other one we haven't got yet that's just come out is the modular board, which does look interesting. So they've done these modules of board that are, I think they're like groups of like 5 hexes together or something.
Would you like some?
Yeah, sure. So you can lay it out however you want, which I'm actually looking forward to that one, because I'd like a bit more variety in the board. And it's a nice art style, as I think you said, but I came in to hear you talking about the player mat, which is hands down the best player mat of any game on the market right now.
And the thing is, if you're not familiar with Scythe, the concept of an amazing player mat probably sounds incredibly dry.
Yeah,
but
it explains the rules once you understand the icons.
Yeah.
Like midway through your first or second game, you'll suddenly go, oh.
It explains everything, and as I was mentioning with Euphoria, in that it's good to play that first, it does a similar thing, but Scythe does it better. Scythe is clearer. Yeah. I prefer what they use and their icons to explain stuff to Euphoria.
But the game I prefer more for 2-player? Terraforming Mars.
I was going to get to Terraforming Mars, but you've got there for me.
Yeah, I think that is the best 2-player game on the market.
Which is just weird,
for record,
because
it supports more players.
It does.
Goes 4, 5, 4, 5?
4. But it's funny, because some people really don't like Terraforming Mars as 2 players, because they find it too competitive. But then we're very competitive anyway when we play just the 2 of us, so we're very happy with it.
No, it's so Eurogamey in that anything you do to another person is very indirect most of the time, and the things you can do are so minor.
Yeah, you might destroy a few leaves.
Yeah.
Or put your production down by 1. That sounded very northern, production.
But it's a fantastic game, which I think we should talk more about in a minute. But I'd say it's one big weakness, especially now we've got a load of expansions for it, which are not easy to separate, I have to say, from the game. It's a terrible game for, you've got a friend over, introduce them to this game.
Yeah.
So once you get into expansions, unless your friends are gamers, board gamers specifically, they're never it's a terrible, like we'd have a hard job getting Terraforming Mars out with our role playing group.
But Excuse me, even so, I remember when we were learning the rules, and we found it quite difficult as well, and there were some rules that
We did our first game totally wrong.
Yeah, I kept getting annoyed at some rules because they weren't kind of properly explained, or they were explained in a different way from the way I thought, or you had to kind of look somewhere else for it.
That's learning curve of the person, like just understanding the game, which I think every game your first playthrough is kind of a bit iffy.
I definitely think it's a terrible manual in that book.
But the worst part about it is, like, our game now, with the expansions in, if we introduced friends who hadn't played this game before to Terraforming Mars,
they'd be like,
with all the expansions in, there is too much there now.
There's so much stuff.
It's, in terms of explaining it, it would be as complex as explaining TI. But whereas TI, you could say, look, this is an all-day event, go watch a video beforehand, get as familiar as you can, it's going to be a great day. With TI, this is with Terraforming Mars, this is a hour-and-a-half board game.
Well, it depends on how many players. For us, it's about an hour and a half, but we've had longer ones.
Yeah.
We've had some up to nearly 3 hours at times.
Yeah, probably 2 to 3 hour games.
Especially if you've got, say 2 more people that are brand new. Yeah,
it's going to run slower.
Yeah, a lot slower.
And it's not that kind of grandiose epic game that TI is, that you could make an event out of.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing is as well, for new players, Terraforming Mars is really overwhelming. Especially I think in terms of the cards you get.
Yeah.
In that you think, oh, well, I should probably get most of these cards because they all do cool things, and then you learn over time, actually, no, because if you do that, you'll run out of money too quickly. Or you'll waste cards, or you'll find, actually, no, it's not that important now, and da-da-da. But you don't know that unless you played it a few times.
Yeah, so I think, like, as a game now, like, if we were to introduce you to it, you came over to our house, we did a role-playing game or something, and we go, right, let's play a board game to finish off, and we're finishing off the day with this game, it would take us probably 2 hours probably 30-40 minutes to strip the cards out to the most basic possible game, and then we'd play that, and you'd have a sampler after 2 hours of playing it, and it would be a terrible experience. But as a couples game, where you both know the rules, you're both board gamers, so, you play board games, you get this game, you start getting expansions, and it is, I think, my favourite couples game. Like, it's one of my favourite games to play with you, possibly the most favourite.
But again, we bounce off each other very well. We're both very competitive.
Well, we're both board gamers.
And we're both board gamers. It might not work for all couples.
No, absolutely. If a couple is into board gaming, I think Terraforming Mars would be a great game.
Yeah. You're stripping off.
I am. It's really hot with all the equipment on for filming.
Yes, I suppose it is a little bit.
Plus I'm covered in beer.
Oh, yeah. That's true. Oh, well, never mind. It'll smell a bit of beer, but yeah.
I'll just make it feel more homely.
Yes.
What about card games?
Yeah, we should talk more about card games, because I know sometimes you shy away from card games. You're kind of more interested in board games and miniatures in particular, if there are miniatures in the board games.
Actually, no. Let's talk about this before we get to card games.
Okay.
Right? Because it was miniatures that got me into board games. Like the first...
Oh, really? Was it?
Yeah. Oh. The first board games in decades that I purchased were the D&D board games. And I never bought them with intention to play the games. I bought them for the minis so I can paint them and use them in D&D, because what's more appropriate than D&D miniatures?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So I bought, first of all, Wrath of a Shardalon, which I actually got twice, because the minis were really useful in duplicate. And then I kind of bought all the others right up to... I never got the giant one. But so anyway, I bought these games for the minis, and then along came a Kickstarter for a game called Blood Rage, and I looked at the minis and I thought, that troll is the best miniature troll, the best sculpt I've ever seen. I love the style of it. It was the facial details.
Which troll was it?
The one with the shaman, I think. It's got the slightly flatter nose, and it just looks...
What, the fire troll?
No, it's a giant. You're thinking of the fire giant.
Oh, right, fire giant.
No, the troll shaman.
Okay.
I think it's the troll shaman.
Yeah.
And it's just such an epic troll model.
Mm-hmm.
As well as all the other stuff. You've got so many models in this Kickstarter that I decided to back it. So I backed this game, and whilst I'm following the Kickstarter, I kind of looked at it and I thought, looks like it might be fun to play. Once I've got it all painted up, I'll have to give it a go. And I did, and I enjoyed it. And I thought, this is a really good game. And even now, I think that is a half-decent Euro game. Like, it's up there as a game.
But you do always win.
That is a downside. It just my particular way of playing that kind of game just seems to really work. And I've done a guide on how to always win at Blood Rage, which is a video well worth checking out.
Well, I find anyway, with Blood Rage, even if you don't win, you get used to the fact that there are really only a few strategies to follow. There's the one where you suck all the rage from somebody else.
Oh, the Loki strategy.
Yeah, the Loki strategy. There's the one where you win all the battles, you pillage, you do it legitimately. And sort of...
There are two viable strategies. Rage efficiency.
Yeah.
Which you do until you have so much rage that you can do anything you want.
Yeah.
And area control.
Yeah.
Those are your two basic strategies. But if you watch my video on how to win Blood Rage, you can basically learn how to trounce everyone. I don't always win, in fairness. Once I made a mistake on the final turn, because remember when we were in a gaming club?
Yes.
Then we were in the pub.
Yes.
We were playing Blood Rage. There was so much noise and distraction in the last turn, I forgot to do the very last action, and I just started the final scoring, and I went, oh no, I meant to do that! Oh no, it's too late.
And then I believe it was me who won?
I don't know.
I think I might have won.
Quite possibly. But, I mean, I was literally half a second into scoring the game, and I could have still done it, and it just,
Yeah, but, never mind.
My honesty hurt me.
But we're honest in our games. Oh, I was going to say something, but I've forgotten what it was.
So yeah, anyway, miniatures got me into modern board games.
I remember now.
And now I've started getting games that don't have miniatures in, and it's really weird, but I've got enough to paint, so,
Well, I have never said how I got into board games, as in, like, Euro games and whatever. So... there was a society at my uni called Sci-Fi Fantasy SOC, and apart from the extremely boring LARP session I went to, there was, and Magic the Gathering as well. They had like sort of Magic the Gathering evenings, and this guy was really attracted to me, and it was very awkward. But anyway, there was a board game night that I went to. It was very rare that I went to these events because they clashed with a lot of my commitments with my subject, which was annoying. But there was a board game night. I remember two things. BO and Ameritrash. There was one particular guy who had really bad BO. But fortunately, he wasn't on my table. I played two Ameritrash games. One of them I can't remember the name of. And the other one was Betrayal at House on the Hill.
Ah. Now, we need to clarify... Ameritrash and Eurogame, because not everyone watching will know.
Yes, indeed. We paused. We did.
I was waiting for you.
Dramatic pause. Okay, basically, Ameritrash is kind of American orientated. You quite often get things like zombies, high action urgency. You get things like... there's kind of more luck than strategy a lot of the time.
The important thing with Ameritrash is that it is theme over mechanics.
Yes,
so
that's what I was trying to think of.
The theming is always very strong. My favourite Ameritrash game is Firefly the Game.
Yes.
It is so rich with theme and such a nostalgia trip for anyone who loved the Firefly TV series, or indeed, the film Serenity, that it just oozes theme through every action that happens in the game. Yeah,
it's amazing.
But its only real gameplay mechanic is that you have a choice of two things.
Yeah.
Whatever happens, there's almost always a choice of two things. Saying that, there's 4 actions you could take in the game, but each of those 4 actions has 2 different ways it can happen. Every time you draw a card, there is almost always 2 different things on that card, and you can choose which one you do. But that's its only real mechanic, and fundamentally it's a very luck-driven game. You draw a bad card, you've drawn a bad card, and it can happen that the first card you draw in a turn ends your turn, and if you get that 5-6 times in a row or more, which has happened in our games, then that's actually quite a long time where every time you try to do something, the game kicks you in the teeth.
It says no.
You have to have a high con save to play.
No fun for you.
Game.
Yeah, but with Betrayal, it's not as bad as that. But yeah, it's very, very themed. There's quite a lot of replay value in terms of you explore rooms and you draw them randomly, like they're tiles that you draw. But there is a lot of luck, so if you happen to roll a certain number, if you're deciding if the haunt has happened, it can either happen really quickly or it can take forever.
And that, I found, was mostly down to player count.
Yes.
If you had a large number of players, it would, like, if you had 6 players, it would often happen on the first move.
Yeah.
So one of the things we found, there was that last expansion actually had new rules for how the haunt happened, didn't it? Which were much better.
What, are we talking the Widow's Walk? Are we talking the Baldur's Gate?
Oh, I think it was the Baldur's Gate one.
Because that in itself is kind of a separate game rather than
It
expansion.
is a separate game, but I think its rules for how the haunt happens are much better than the Betrayal at House on the Hill.
I do want to still get Betrayal Origins. There is an Origins game which is done by the same publisher as the Baldur's Gate one, which looked really cute. I saw it Dragon Meat. But yes, I'd quite like to get that.
Yeah, I have a complex relationship with it, because I get it, and okay, it's a game with theme, and it's about a haunted house, but the theme doesn't really sing with me.
No.
As much. Certainly not as much as you.
No, but...
And the gameplay mechanic is fundamentally awful. It's not much more complex than Snakes and Ladders.
No, however, you made Scooby-Doo.
That does improve it a lot.
Improves it a lot.
It improves it a lot. So, basically,
You talk about that, I need the loo again.
Okay, do you want to bring it back on the way?
What, the loo?
No, Scooby-Doo.
Oh, sure.
So, we'll show you the minis for that in a minute, but basically, it's a game set in a haunted house. You've got to Scooby-Doo it, right? So I did. It was just a stocking filler present I did for Jayson last year. I basically made a Scooby-Doo expansion, and I got miniatures and stuff, which I'll talk about then when Jayson turns up with the box. So yeah, my relationship with Betrayal is, as I say, complex, because I think from a gameplay perspective, it sucks. But if the theme speaks to you, then you'll love it. And Jayson loves Betrayal because the theme speaks to him, and that is absolutely what Ameritrash games are about. They're about theme. Whereas the Euro game, sometimes called a German game, is often the complete contrast of that. So the themes are often really quite dry and dull. One of the best Euro games we have is a game called Castles of Burgundy. And the theme is you're building an estate in France in the 17th century, and you place these really badly drawn tiles onto a badly drawn map.
It's
dull.
It looks
dull,
horrible. It's dull. They haven't
but
made a new
version. The gameplay mechanics are amazing.
Yeah,
like Euro games quite often have really good game mechanics that are, and they're quite often very well balanced mathematically, so that multiple ways to win exist. And critically, one of the things that's common in a Euro game is that there's very rarely any conflict or direct conflict between players. Everything you do to affect another player is usually indirect, and that's important in a board game. Also,
one thing I forgot to mention, one big difference as well, is that with Euro games, you don't get people who lose and drop out during the game. Everyone reaches the end, and then you work out who wins. Whereas with Ameritrash, with things like Monopoly, of course, you can quite easily, if you like in Betrayal, if you die, that's it, you're out.
Yeah, you know you're... Often in a lot of Ameritrash games, you know you're losing hours before it happens, and you're simply staying in that game to support your friends' games.
Yeah.
because they haven't decided who's won yet. I mean, Monopoly is the classic for that. You know who's won probably half hour into the game, but it takes 5-6 hours to play. So, you know, what is the point of Monopoly? Well, I can tell you that. It's originally called the Landlord game, and it was invented to teach people socialist values as an example of how bad the system is and how badly it's rigged. And then the system rigged the game. So, Scooby-Doo! I'm going to get these up to the camera. Your Diet Badger model is in here.
It is. That was an in-joke, because when I got my own copy of Betrayal, we put the Dire Badger in there. There's something you can pick up called an omen, and one of the omens is a dog. So we put the Dire Badger mini that my ex had in the Betrayal box, and then it ended up with me, and then it ended up in there.
And then we got all the Scooby-Doo characters. There's Fred and all the others.
Yeah, so you've got like four traits, and you put like little tickers around, and it.
But here's the cool thing. I'm just gonna. Oh, crikey! I've just dropped Shaggy. Right, I'm just gonna.
Oh no.
Get these set up on my hand so I can show you to the camera.
Where did you get these minis from exactly?
I'll explain in a moment. But so here we go. Get these on. So here we have
Jinkies
in the exact same style, really, as the pre-painted ones that come in the Betrayal box. Hopefully that's focusing okay and you can see him. So yes, it's even got Scrappy in this set. The rules around Scrappy are quite amusing. Let's face it, he is a widely reviled character in the Scooby-Doo verse, or Scooby-verse. So the rules here, it's in here, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is the ta-ta-ta-ta-ta puppy power rule. On any haunt where the traitor is not the player who triggered the haunt, necessary for gameplay mechanic reasons, Scrappy may instead choose to become the betrayer. That's his one power. And his stats are all appalling. However, to balance it, if you get a boost, he actually goes up way more than most characters. He can be a very powerful character, but by default, he is atrocious.
That
was done again
who played Scrappy, where Scrappy got locked in the locked room where there's 4 locked doors?
Yeah.
And in order to get out of this room that magically locks behind you, you have to do a knowledge roll, and your knowledge was absolutely rubbish.
You have to get 3, and I only had 1 dice for knowledge.
And there's just 1 or 2.
You can only roll 1 or 2 on the dice. You can have 0, 1 or 2 actually, but he couldn't roll a 3, and that was the end of Scrappy.
Yep. And here happens to be the Dire Badger, nothing to do with the actual game itself, but again, it was an in-joke. I think is it 3.5? Celestial Dire Badger.
Oh, Celestial.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 2005 Wizards, so this is like the 3.5.
You know, I think that's the only pre-painted D&D mini in this house.
Yes, it is. Michael B says there's a spot on minis. Yes, they are.
They are. They're in the exact style of the original ones. Now, I found them on eBay. They were basically, in the 80s, somebody made this toy set of Scooby-Doo and the Haunted House. And up until recently, I still had the Haunted House. And it had a train set. Now, this one was being sold on eBay with missing parts in the train set. And I thought, minis! Because I don't care about the missing train track. This is some ruined child's toy that somebody was flogging on eBay for, like... I don't think it was that much money at all, because it was broken and missing bits. Like, if you actually managed to find it on eBay, it'll probably cost you a bit, because it's a rare toy. But I didn't care about the fact there were bits missing.
Yeah, you just needed the minis.
So yeah, I just wanted the 6 minis, and they were absolutely bang on. I didn't even have to paint them.
Yeah. But my story does not end there. So I also played Flux at an LGBT sock thing, like my first I went to. So I got into sort of my first card game outside of regular playing cards, as Phil has said, he likes Flux. And then I used to do quite a regular board game night with my best friends up in York, and that's when they played Euphoria and Ticket to Ride, and that's when I started getting into Euro games properly, so that as well.
Okay.
So yeah, all sort of...
I'm going to tell you more about my story in a minute. So Scott
Yeah,
Poe,
yeah.
hello.
Hey, Scott
Hello to
Poe!
the people in the mall. Anyone who can overhear Scott Poe's phone right now, just want to say... Well, it's listening in the mall.
Oh, I hadn't
Scott
even read
Poe,
that yet.
Hello from a mall lounge space in Arizona. Hello, Arizona!
Hello, Arizona!
Also, don't know if you're single, but this one's a catch. There's a role player, therefore, awesome.
I thought I meant you for a minute.
I'm talking about Scott. We're speaking to the people around Scott right now in a mall.
I'll just stop talking. You seem to be way more on the ball than me with Scott at the moment.
So, after Blood Rage, and I played this with a couple of people, with my role-playing game friends that were in my weekly session at that point. And this is only a few years ago. I mean, I don't remember when Blood Rage Kickstarter was, but...
Was it 2013?
3 or 4 years ago. Wasn't long.
Okay.
It's probably roughly a year or so before we started going out, I guess.
So 2015.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would think. And then I kind of became aware of these other games, but I didn't really get into them because I didn't really have anyone to play them with until I met you.
Ooh.
And you were into games, and so I thought, oh, fantastic! And we had this discussion. I remember, it was like, you'd quite like to explore some more board games, and like this was, I knew they existed. I discovered them. Oh, Scott is apparently married with 4 kids.
No, a 4-year-old.
Thanks for the endorsement.
Not 4 kids.
4-year-olds.
A 4-year-old.
Hello, Scott's other half. Sorry.
I don't know if they're there right now.
Don't know, but thought I'd cover myself.
Alright.
So, yeah, I remember us having this discussion. It was when you lived down in Ascot.
Yes.
And because it was at your flat, and it was like, let's try some more games. And I can't remember. I'm trying to think what the first one we bought was.
Probably Euphoria.
I bought it for you, didn't I?
Yeah,
as a
for
gift?
Christmas or birthday or something.
Something like that. Yeah, and that was like the first one, and that's I mean, although it's not amongst my sort of top favourite games, it is a great game.
Yeah, and as I mentioned before, it's a great kind of introduction to Euro games, even though you're not going to know necessarily completely what's going on to start with. It's quite quick to get used to, and
there's a lot of strategy to Euphoria.
Yes, yeah.
It does have a reasonable luck element, and I think the important thing to understand with games is luck and skill are not opposite.
No.
You can have a game that requires lots of both. A classic example is poker. You need both a lot of skill and a lot of luck to win.
Yeah. But like there are things with Euphoria as well where it's luck. Like you could say that in terms of what factions you go with, as I mentioned earlier, you get the factions at the start. That's kind of luck, but then you have to strategize based on that luck.
But if you want some advice, there's a how to win Euphoria video.
It is. There's
I'm pretty good at it. So I did that.
But there are times when I definitely win that.
Yeah.
Over you.
Yeah, it's not like Blood Rage where it's like I'm an impervious wall of victory.
We're quite equal, I think, with Euphoria.
Did you watch the video there? Is that why?
No. I knew how to play before you.
Shush. Oh yeah, you had played it before, hadn't you?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was in
New
York and stuff, so I knew the rules and
so
things.
I probably wouldn't have gotten into board games or even discovered Twilight Imperium if it wasn't for our relationship and you. So even though I knew these games were there and I wanted to play them, I just had no means of doing so. Because the thing is, you don't kind of like if you want to play board games. Like we're talking now to our audience, who may well want to play board games, but they might have no one to play them with, and it's not the kind of thing you kind of walk up to someone in the street and say, "Do you want to play board games?"
No, we tried that once and it didn't really work out.
In fairness, it was in a pub. They were playing D&D in the pub, and we went up to them. We said, "Hey, like, do you see you're into D&D? We play D&D. We've got a cool venue." And I undersold that. Really, I should have sold it on the minutes more, but you know.
And they were like rabbits in headlights and didn't talk.
What I forgot was that, despite the fact we were in a pub, is that we were talking to role players, and therefore there's a high probability that some of them are awkward.
Not great at talking.
Sorry. I realised I just inadvertently slagged off like myself, yourself, and most of the audience. Scott says, one of my first dates, my girlfriend, now wife, took us to a games meetup, and I got proper introduced to Eurogames. Before that, I knew about Munchkin and a few other Steve Jackson games.
Munchkin. That was another game that I did. Oh my god, me and my ex had loads of Munchkins. We had, not the original one, but we had, I've got Munchkin Booty, I've still got that, fortunately. We had Munchkin Apocalypse, that was a new one that came out. We had like Munchkin Kung Fu or something. We had loads. We actually started collecting them.
I don't think it's that great a game.
No, you said that. It is very Munchkin-y. That's the whole point. It's taking the mick out of Munchkins in D&D, and that you just want all the loot and all the treasure and stuff. But yeah, that was another thing that I was introduced to at the my friends' board game nights. We played Munchkin, then we played it quite often at my place, like before a D&D game, that kind of thing. It is definitely better with sort of 3 or 4 players as opposed to, you can't really play anywhere with 2. It normally says not 2 players.
Well, we have a mechanism we use to play games with 2 players that aren't designed for it, don't we? I think we should explain that for the audience. Although we were midway through, also just a suggestion of one place I found where you can meet up with gaming groups is a site called Meetup.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't... I don't particularly want to endorse Meetup, because I understand that from a group organiser's perspective, it can be... It's not great tools and stuff, and it might not be the best solution even. However, it is a site I have used to, meet up with people with similar interests in terms of gaming. I found a role-playing group for it once, and I found a local board gaming group through it, and I've met friends that we still have through Meetup. So that's one place you might consider. So meetup.com it's called. So if you're looking for a place and you've tried the usual routes, that's one worth considering. But yes, our technique for playing a game that isn't designed for 2 players as a 2-player game, and it's fairly simple. Is we simply play 2 players each, but whatever mechanic is in the game, usually there's some kind of trading or benefit you can do, and we disallow that between a person's own players. So if you're going to trade, you have to trade with one of the other players' 2 factions. So we disallow that trade between yourself, and then when it comes to scoring, is we always score the lowest. So the highest score will trigger the end of game, if there's a rule about that, because quite often there is in games like first to 100 or whatever. But the lowest score is the one of each player is the one we use for determining victory. Yeah. So that way you can't use one faction to boost the other. And by doing that, we sometimes play non-2-player games as 2-player.
Yeah. I also got into Gloom.
Oh, yeah.
And since then, I've bought my copy. I remember I somebody wanted to borrow the game, so I let him borrow it, and then he never gave it back. But then again, I borrowed one of his books, and I still have it, so never mind. But I've got my own copy of Gloom. I've even got Cthulhu Gloom now. It's nice to get you into role-playing, I think, because There's one option where you literally just put the card down and, oh yeah, it gives you +10 or... But we really enjoyed making up the stories and role-playing, and that...
It's one of those odd storytelling games, isn't it? Where there's a game mechanic there, but the suggestion in the book is that actually it's not about the game, it's about the stories you tell.
Yeah. And actually, that made me improve my role-playing in D&D a lot.
But there's no mechanic around the role-playing. It's just it's a suggestion in the rules. And I've always found that a rather strange...
It is very weird. Maybe they thought that lots of people who play D&D will play this.
There's other games like that as well that encourage the same kind of thing, aren't there? That sort of suggests as you play a card, you tell a story.
Or maybe even like... Betrayal's a bit like that, in a way. But maybe it's more like they think, oh, yeah, D&D, or maybe even something like Vampire the Masquerade.
Yeah, but it's sort of this idea of... In a way, it's sort of covering up a bad game. Like, I'm not saying Gloom is bad, it's a reasonable card game, but I have card games I prefer to Gloom.
Yeah.
Like, there's any number of games I'd think of first before Gloom. In fact, I even forgot
definitely.
we had 2 copies of Gloom.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad game. It's okay. And it's definitely one, because it's got that story-driven focus, it's definitely one you can bring out with more players and have a bit more fun with.
It's a really nice game to play on a dark, gloomy night, and you've got, like, a nice sort of warm drink. We played it a lot around sort of Halloween and... Very
it definitely
eerie,
works with more players if you're doing the storytelling
definitely
thing.
I agree.
But the thing is, as a card game, mechanically it isn't anything particularly special.
I do love the idea though of the transparent cards.
Yes.
That you put over the top of other cards in order to cancel things out.
Gloom is a game where your character has 3 scores and...
Or 3 slots, if you will, not 3 scores.
Think of it as 3 stats. They're not named.
Not even that, really. More just three potential slots where you can gain
positive
points
or
lose
number.
points, and you want to lose them.
Yeah, and then the cards in the game are made of that transparent film type stuff, and they'll have 1 or more of those slots with value on.
Yeah.
So, and then they've got a bit of flavour text that's supposed to inspire some description.
Yeah.
And I think on that regard, Classic Gloom is possibly easier than Cthulhu, wasn't it, when we played it?
Yeah, because Cthulhu Gloom is very heavy on the Cthulhu, not only the Cthulhu mythos, but you've got to know very kind of the stuff with Innsmouth and Kingsport, so the very sort of American 1920s.
You've got to have read Lovecraft to really understand the flavour text.
I've read Lovecraft, but I don't know that much about Innsmouth.
There was a lot of there's a lot of amulets and books and things mentioned in Lovecraft stories, and if you don't know them, it's like, how do you narrate around that?
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas Gloom was a bit more general purpose in its things.
Yeah, classic Gloom is perfectly fine for anybody to play. You've got like a circus family, you've got an Addams family type thing, quite sort of stern looking. You've got weird and wonderful, quite sort of simple ideas.
Yeah, easy to express and convey for that storytelling approach. But favourite card game?
I know what you're going to say.
Do you? What am I going to say?
Begins with an S.
Star Realms?
Yes.
Now, Star Realms, I tell you what I like about Star Realms, is I like playing it when I'm waiting for you, when I'm picking you up from work.
You played a really long game today, though.
I did, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
But, Star Realms has an app, and it's also on Steam for your desktop computer, but it's also a card game.
Yes.
And I quite like the mechanic, because I like the concept of a deck builder. I was always put off by.
Me too.
Because I don't want to go around buying cards hoping to build a good deck.
Yeah.
But Star Realms doesn't do that. Like, we have bought a load of extra cards for it anyway, and basically fallen into the trap.
Basically.
Expansions, yeah. But in the game of Star Realms, everyone's playing from the same deck of this sort of trade road of cards you can buy. So if you extend your deck, you're basically extending it for everyone, but within each game, you buy the card within the game. And so it's not a question of who collects the most cards wins the game, or who got lucky with an ultra rare or something. Because that whole concept, just like, hell no.
Well, that's trading cards.
Yeah, trading. That's the difference between trading card and deck builder. And I never understood that.
Me neither.
Because I didn't know that terminology was a thing. I just thought deck builder.
No. Well, I played sort of trading card games before, like Yu-Gi-Oh! In particular. And then kind of stopped when it got really crazy with various decks that were really overpowered and stuff. I thought, no, I'm not going to bother.
Well, this kind of thing always crops up because those kind of trading card games, they rely on being able to sell you the new expansion.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, there's also
which means they will always suffer from
rules
inflation.
Yeah. Whereas deck building, I thought, oh well, does that mean you got to buy certain decks and build them? No, actually, you can play it perfectly fine with, a box of Star Realms, a box of Frontiers.
Yeah.
And then you can buy more expansions if you want, but it's not necessary.
Base game, I think, is £15 as well, which is so cheap, and it's really simple. So basically, you're buying spaceships, and you're attacking your opponent. They call it authority. You're undermining your opponent with attacks, but we think of it as health.
Yeah. It is just health.
It's just
Or in terms of Yu-Gi-Oh, your life points.
Yeah. They call it authority because you're not meant to be attacking them, you're outmaneuvering them or some shit, I don't know. Anyway, you've got 3 things on the cards essentially, which is how much purchasing power the card gives you, how much damage the card does, and how much health the card restores. Authority.
Optionally, yeah.
And then the 4th thing is how much does this card cost to buy? But then they mix it up, so it's not just spaceships, you've got bases and outposts and a few other little complications, and then there's 4 sets, or 4 factions, and if you play 2 cards of the same faction in the same turn, you unlock special abilities.
Yeah, you get synergies and things.
So
nice.
that gives you loads of extra stuff, and that simple mechanic of, right, you start with this really terrible deck of 10 cards, and you use those to try and improve your deck by buying more cards. And one of the things you tend to do, I've noticed, is you tend to always spend all your purchasing power. Whereas in the midpoint of the game onwards, I tend to stop buying cards because I'm asking the question, will this improve my deck? And if I've strengthened my deck, I don't want to add a weak card to it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really either if my deck is strong, but if it's still quite weak because bad luck or you've bought something before me that I wanted, then I still try and buy things. So it does depend on the game and stuff, but I try and use the purchasing power if I've got it. I might as well, but yeah.
But yeah, no, I think for me, I suppose, to be honest, I play Star Realms enough that it's really when I think card game, it's the one I think of.
Yeah.
We have other card games, and you know what? I'm trying to think of them now, and I'm like, what do we even have?
We have Cthulhu Realms, if that counts.
Yes. Well, it's the same game, but Cthulhu theme.
Yep. We've
slightly more complex, actually.
We've got Gloom. We've got Loot, which is a very easy
but that's
game.
That's so simple your mum can play it.
That is very true, and that's not a metaphor. That's real. My actual mother has played it with us, and she got it. Which is no insult, but she's just not into this kind of games. Jesus, what else have we got?
Exactly. And yeah, I keep going back to Star Realms. I think it's the best card game.
I've got the Binding of Isaac Kickstarter.
Oh yeah, no, we did play that for a little bit, but I still went back to Star Realms.
Well, I think that Star Realms is a better game, yes, but it's a bit different. Binding of Isaac, and again, it works better with more people, and I like Binding of Isaac very much, and that's why I back the game. It's good, I like it, but yeah, you need more players. We've also got Arkham Horror, the card game, which we've only really played once.
Yeah, you know, I could barely remember even playing the damn thing.
Yeah. The thing is, it's got really good reviews, and people were saying how amazing it was, so I got it. But I haven't
we
really
need to give it more airtime.
We do. We need to give it another go or two.
But there's a whole genre of games though that we never really play, and you know that's that kind of strategy games like, and I think for us as a couple it wouldn't really work. But I do really love strategy games, and I don't mean that in the kind of strategy come up with a tactic to win. Like, you know, there is strategy to Euphoria, the strategy to Scythe, but it's almost like those kind of games that are kind of closer to wargaming, where you're kind of building up empires.
Yeah.
And one of the things I just wanted to kind of raise awareness of is how good those kind of games are for world building fantasy.
Yeah.
Because we've mentioned this a few times before, but we did that TI game where we did the role-playing game set in the universe we'd created together the day before. And if ever you want a game where your players really understand the universe and the world that you're playing this RPG in, try to find a board game where you can recreate, where you can build the world together. Now, I can't think of a good fantasy strategy game at the moment. The one we have is Conquest of Narath, which, fully painted, looks beautiful.
There is that really, really expensive D&D board game campaign thing. Oh, what's it called? The box is about this thick. Shut up and sit down. Won't stop talking about it.
Oh, it won't?
It's like £100 or something.
What, Gloomhaven?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, but that is the more like the D&D board game, miniature game.
Yeah,
game.
that was kind of half a joke, but yes. It was kind of half a joke because it is a role-playing game in essence, because...
Yeah, it's that kind of miniature combat game, but fantasy.
Yes.
Which we actually have 6 of those games in this house, and we've never played once.
No.
Because I bought them for the minis.
They're all yours, but yeah.
I mean, I only bought them for the minis. I mean, the D&D board games are sort of okay. I have played them with some friends who just wanted to give them a go. I never played Myth.
No.
Which is weird, cause, like, I think Myth is the one that would appeal most if the rulebook made any sense at all, but I can't figure it out. Oh yeah, the Tiny Epic games are fun, says Scott Poe. Best pickup game is Frank's Zoo. Anyone will play it? I've not come across that.
We've got Tiny Epic Galaxies, and we've got the expansion for that, so not the big black.
That's our only Tiny Epic game, is it? Or maybe it is actually. Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, it's okay. We haven't played it in a while.
It fills my TI fix when we can't play TI.
Yes.
So we tend to play it after we've played TI.
Yeah, I personally want to get Race for the Galaxy, which is apparently a really good deck builder. Okay. But it's really hard to find. Like, as in the base game is quite rare. And Phil has also said, I like Ascension Chronicle of the Godslayer deck builder. That sounds like a black metal album.
It does a
Ascension Chronicle of the Godslayer. That is very, like, Balsagoth. Very black metal.
The one I wouldn't mind trying, which is completely out there for the kind of games we usually get, there's this bicycle race game.
What?
I'm trying to remember what it's called.
You've gone full circle back to Queen.
Yes, we have, in a way. I'm going to look up the name. Keep talking.
Okay. Right, bicycle. Other games I played. I remember playing Happy Salmon in the middle of the Expo Trade Halls. You what?
Flamme Rouge.
Flamme
Rouge. It's supposed to be a really good bicycle race game.
I've heard of it, I think.
Well, Shut Up and Sit Down did a review on it. What's that?
Oh, right, okay.
Then we can decide. And the other weird race game, well, it's not weird, but they reviewed a race game, a Formula 1 game, which is based on Monaco. I forget exactly what it's called, but it uses the polyhedral dice. And that's something I don't know if I want to buy it, but I wouldn't mind trying it.
Yeah. Scoppo says Roll for the Galaxy is much better than Race. Now, I've heard people say the opposite as well, but Roll for the Galaxy is a much more recent publication. It involves having lots of tiny dice, and you roll for it rather than sort of the deck building thing. So yeah, I've heard people say otherwise, so I'm not sure. But you've reminded me about Roll for the Galaxy.
I have to try them both and then see which one you like. That's what games expos are for.
Well, yes. Yeah, that's true. What else have we played? Oh, yes, I played... what's it called? That game when your fantasy character's trapped in a mall and you're not allowed to talk to each other.
Oh,
Magic Maze or something?
I've seen it played. I haven't had a go at it, though.
Yeah.
Did you play that, you lucky sod?
I thought you weren't really that bothered about those kinds of games, but...
Here's the thing, like most of the games we get, we mostly focus on games that will play 2-player, and if they can handle more, it's a bonus. Because we mostly play 2-player games. Like we do occasionally get to play our games with other people, but we don't need to buy games especially for that.
No, that's true.
So it's not a game I would think we'd ever go out and get. So I didn't pay it much attention, but it's certainly a game I wouldn't mind.
Yeah, it's very intense. It's very stressful because you can't talk to each other. You can, however, get like a little red thing and go at somebody, which is really unnerving if you're that person and people are going, do this thing or do a thing, and you're like, what thing? I don't know what you're talking about. Stop doing that. But yeah, basically you are different fantasy characters like a dwarf or whatever. You all have to get out of a mall, but you can only go to your specific exit. And also, you can only travel in a certain direction. So there's that kind of step involved of, okay, I have to go here, and then I can't do anything, so I have to get somebody else to move instead of me, and then move around and stuff and open things. And you're on a timer. You've got an hourglass. So yeah, very, very stressful.
Hello.
Hello.
I can't say your name.
Yeah, it's a stressful game, but it's worth doing. Again, it's better for 4 players type thing. Definitely not worth for 2.
Yeah. But
I hear thumpy music.
Yes, the neighbours have started playing loud music, so it might be getting time we ended the stream, unfortunately.
Yeah, well.
Before YouTube comes and blocks the sound on the video. So, Zach, here we are. Is there more...
Not really, no. Not that I can think of. There are a couple of other games I've played in the past, sort of the once.
Yeah, but, I mean, I think we've given a good overview of some of the great games out there that are worth trying.
Actually, can I say one game that's good for 2 players, another card game? Lost Cities.
How did we miss it? And the thing about Lost Cities is you can see how it was created. This is somebody who had a normal deck of cards. Thought, hey, I've come up with a great game with a normal deck of cards. It doesn't use the picture cards. Well, it does, but they're worth nothing. So, yeah, no, it does use them. So, in a way. But what they've done is they've reskinned the deck of cards, added 2 more suits, put it in a box and sold it. Because the zero cards, the wager cards, they are essentially, when the person designed that game,
I think you're making this way too complicated.
Yeah, I just see how the game was created. I'm sorry. It's just...
Okay, fair enough. But yeah, Lost City is good. It's for 2 players only. It's a pretty easy game to get into, but it's nice. We played it a lot, like when we were up in Hull, for example. It's sort of an easy-going game. But essentially, you want to try and complete various epic journeys. So you might be going into a desert and doing a pyramid thing, or you might be going into a volcano, or there's like a cool space type alien thing as well.
Basically, each of the 7 suits of cards, I think it is, are themed.
They are themed, yeah. And what you want to do, you start with 8 cards, and you always have to have 8. So if you put one down, which you have to put one down, you have to then pick one up. So you can pick one up from the deck, or you can pick one up from the board, if you will, or the line of the themes. So you've got each of the themes laid out in a line. And it's annoying and competitive, but also really cool.
Its weakness, though,
is
scoring. Like, if you're not great at maths, you are not going to like this game.
No, the scoring is a bit silly.
Definitely draws on classic card games of old in that sense.
Yeah.
So, basically, you lay your cards out 1 to 10, and when you put the cards down, you have to lay a higher card than the last last value you laid within that set, suit. And you each have your own track for each suit. And you want to get more than 20 points in each suit you play. If you can't make 20 points, you try not to play that suit at all.
Yes, there's a lot of kind of taking risks. You don't want to play it too safe because then your opponent will get more points than you. But at the same time, the game ends, or the round ends, when the last card is drawn off the deck. So you've only got so long before you run out of cards. So it's...
And there's wagers you can put down which double the points involved.
But the thing with
wagers for each suit.
There are, but you have to put the wagers down before you start the journey. So you have to be confident, I suppose.
Yeah. And so basically, at the end of when you come to scoring, you can have anything up to 14 things to count up. Because there's 7 suits, 2 players, and you're counting your numbers 1 through 10 to a value hopefully over 20. So there's a little bit of easy maths there, but then you get the wagers where things are doubled, tripled, or quadrupled, and then you've got to add up your score across all 7.
And then if you get 8 or more cards in a row, there's another bonus.
But my problem is those kind of numbers, the numbers you're kind of talking about when you're starting to double and triple and quadruple, and then add 7 numbers in that range up.
Yeah,
so you're dealing in numbers in that.
It reminds me almost of like French Tarot, where you've got to kind of tot it all up.
Scoring, but I don't think French Tarot is a game most will resonate with.
No,
anyone
of course,
outside France, really.
But for me, because we played it, it's like, you've got all these scores, and you've got to remember how to add things up, and
French Tarot has even more complicated scoring than that. But that's Lost City's weakness. If you don't like numbers, that is a terrible game to get. But it's a lot of fun.
Play with a mathematician or somebody else who likes numbers, because the game itself is fine.
In my case.
But actually, we haven't talked about French Tarot.
We haven't. It's the second oldest card game I'm aware of in the world. Minciat is older.
Yes.
It's the forerunner to Bridge.
It is. And traditionally, if we've played a few board games, we normally end with French Tarot in our group.
And the thing about French Tarot that I much prefer to Bridge is that you can play it with 3 to 5 players, and it's a much more intelligent game. Bridge is a game of cheating.
I've never ever played Bridge.
Okay, so in Bridge, you are teamed up with the person opposite you, and there's 4 players, and they call them North, East, South, West. Right? And the Bridge is all about the bidding at the start.
Okay.
How many hands can you make, and what suit is going to be trumps?
Okay.
And because that bidding is so important, and you're not allowed to communicate, there are bidding systems for ways of communicating through your bids.
Right, hence the term Bridge, okay.
Yeah, so I'm trying to remember the name. ACOL is the name of the most common sort of standard bidding system.
ACOL?
ACOL, it's called ACOL. I forget what it stands for. So when I used to play Bridge with a friend, and we came up with our variant on ACOL, and every sort of Bridge couple, as it were, will come up with their own variation on ACOL, and that's how Bridge is played. And it's a game of conceited cheating that's based on French Tarot in how it plays, except the difference is you're choosing a trump suit, and it plays with a modern deck of 52 cards. And it sucks because you can only play it if you've got 4 players and everyone knows ACOL. Right? So it's very hard to introduce someone to Bridge. It's very hard to, like, at the end of a role-playing session, say, right, should we have a game of Bridge?
Yeah.
Because it has to be exactly 4, and everyone has to be up on speed and alcohol, because if one person isn't and makes a mistake in the bidding, then your cheating has failed and you've lost.
Yeah.
And then you play through the whole hand while you're losing. Whereas French Tarot, there aren't teams, but you will still buddy up with people in a 5-player game. I'm trying to remember if you're doing a 4. I don't think you're doing a 4. It's only in 5-player you can team up with people. I wonder if you can even play at 6. I do wonder, but
I'm sure you can.
Maybe.
Don't see why not.
And you bid for yourself, and the difference is French Tarot is not played with an ordinary deck either. It's played with what is traditionally in this country called a tarot deck. The French actually call this game tarot. They don't call it French Tarot. So it's a 74 card deck with the major arcana 1 through 21 plus the Fool. And certain cards have special value in terms of bidding and stuff, and one of its weaknesses is sometimes you won't actually have anyone bid at all, and the cards get chucked in.
And then you have
so
to start again.
It's not a perfect game, and I understand how Bridge came about to solve those problems, but Bridge is just nowhere near as good. So the difference is you're not bidding on the trump suit. You are bidding really as to what the risk of this game is, because the win condition stays the same ish, because there's these 3 special cards, and if you've got those in your hand, there's one that can change hands during the course of the game, and there's 2 that can't change hands, and if you've got those, your winning conditions become easier. So that's all just down to chance, and then you try to make the target, but the higher you bid, the less likely you are to either be able to score or take the cards in what's called the box. So some cards get dealt to the box. The person who plays the hand takes the box, adds them to their hand,
they can put
and then
stuff
removes
back.
cards out. But you only get that at the cheapy bids. So you then eventually, the higher
you don't
bids,
get
you
in
don't
the
get
box.
it. So and that's kind of French Tarot in a nutshell. You know, it's much like Bridge in the way it plays. You follow suit. If you haven't got a card in suit, you have to play a trump. All that, usual nonsense. And as a game, it's versatile, wonderful, and I don't understand how it lost fashion in this country. It's still popular in France. I've seen it played in rural France, like walking past a cafe and seeing people play French Tarot. They play it slightly differently to us. We do actually do a few things, if you like, incorrect, but just sort of unique to our group. But yeah, sod it. So yeah, and it's a classic game. I think it's fantastic. But the other one that is older that I've still not had the chance to play, and I do have cards for it, is Chillout, which is the oldest card game in the world, as to my knowledge, and that has 40 major arcana.
Whoa. Okay.
So you trumps number 1 to 40. 97 cards.
Wow.
And I do actually have the cards, I just don't have the rules. Because this big book that comes with it talks entirely about fortune telling, and I was like, bollocks. It's irrelevant. It's not what cards are for. Cards are for gaming. So that's it. I think that's a good moment to end on, because I'm dying for the loo.
I'm dying for a drink of water.
That too. So if you've been watching this long, and several of you have, so thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much.
So it's awesome to have you each week. We will be back next Friday. We are also on Pear of Geeks 2. We have a second channel for live plays.
Every Monday.
So yeah, so Monday, it's been GM'd by chat member
Phil B.
here, Phil B, who's also on our list of most wonderful, awesome people in the world. And that is a really enjoyable game. I'm having good fun.
Yes.
Good fun playing a cat.
Yes, you're playing a tabaxi.
I am. And you're playing a half-dwarf.
A half-dwarf.
So you could say I'm the prima donna for playing something that's like not in the standard book, but at least it's an official D&D book.
Well, yeah, mine's homebrew. I just grabbed it from somewhere. But I'm thinking, no one's ever played a friggin' half-dwarf before. It's always a half-elf. It's like, no, I want to play a half-dwarf.
Have you considered that's because they're not sexually compatible? That's why half-dwarves aren't a thing.
Anyway.
Good night, all. Thank you for watching.
Good night. Bye-bye. Wavy, wavy.